Welcome to the Brown Report. It is a great evening here in the state of Florida. Thank you so much for watching the show tonight. We greatly appreciate it. We are trying some new things tonight on the show. We're trying to live stream the show on YouTube, so we're going to try that tonight. We're going to also do the show on Periscope and try to record it at the same time. So, God help us all. So hopefully this will work tonight. If we don't get it on YouTube live streaming tonight, which we may not be able to, we'll try it another night. So I don't think it will actually probably work tonight on the YouTube side. So we'll see. We'll see. So if you want to give a call tonight during the show, 347 884 8627 is the number. We love to hear from you tonight on the Brown Report radio show. And hopefully, Blog Talk Radio will not cut us off tonight as well. If it does cut us off for some reason, as always, we go live on Periscope throughout the entire show. So follow us on Periscope at Brown Report and tell us what you think about all things politics on the Brown Report radio show. And hopefully, Blog Talk Radio will not cut us off tonight. We shall see. But it looks like it's already freezing up like it did last night. So we'll try to get it on the iPad. Try to get this on the iPad because it's the internet show, folks. So we're going to try to get that so we can get Barry on the line as well. And like I said, bear with us tonight. We are hopefully going to get the Blog Talk Radio side of it up and running as best as we can tonight. But tonight we're going to talk about Republican, Democrat politics as normal. A lot of other things that Barry Seacrest brings from conservativerefocus.com. And your phone calls are also welcome during the show, too. We would love to hear from you tonight on the program. We've been talking a lot about the Chinese stock market as of late because unfortunately, we have a direct correlation between the Chinese economy and our economy now. You don't really want communists involved in the United States economy, but when you got socialists running for president, that's kind of what you get nowadays. So we're going to talk with Barry Seacrest about that in a few moments. The Shatta, Jubilee, all these things that we've been talking about in the recent shows, we're going to be discussing that on the program tonight. And one of the first articles we're going to talk about from conservativerefocus.com tonight is going to be in regards to this story that was running on his site. It's regarding around 200 generals and admirals that are signing up, talking about this issue with the Iran deal and how they don't agree with it. And we're going to try to get this up right now. As always, we are unfortunately having internet issues sometimes with Blog Talk Radio. The last 3 days have been just some of the roughest time ever, but I think we got it up. Barry, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. How you doing, Matthew?
I'm doing good, and I'm sorry. I know you do a show on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock Eastern.
Yeah.
A great show. And I know you had some issues last night with your show as well. And it's been crazy. It's like the NSA or someone's attacking us.
It really is. It is crazy. And you know, we listened. I came back because Kim was talking about it. I was just I had to actually create commercials from YouTube, you know, instead of using our clips. And it was interesting. But it was hysterical because Lee, my co-host, and I were sitting there talking last night. We kept waiting for the show to come on, and it never showed up. And so people got to listen to us, you know, just chat about ball games and things and my Macanudo ascot that I was smoking. And it was really a hysterical and we had no idea that we were on the air. But the show had gone live. We were waiting for the intro music, you know, because it automatically gears up. And, you know, once you get the intro done, well, you know, it's time to go. And so we're sitting there chatting, and after a while, we're like, well, you know, 53 seconds has passed. We should be on the air. Are we on the air? And finally, you know, Kim, the engineer, came on and said, hey, you know, it's not working. Nothing's working. And I'm like, oh, this is great. But it was hysterical when you go back and listen to it. I don't know if you've heard it, but you should listen to it. But we had, you know, we made it work, and it was a bit of a mess. Lee got kicked off one time. I'm not sure if it's because of something that he said or something going wrong with Blog Talk, because I think what he said was pretty, you know, it was pretty out there. stuff they don't want you to talk about. So anyway, but you know, it can make things fun at times, quite frankly.
Yeah, it certainly can. And we're trying this YouTube thing tonight. I don't think it's working, but it's the first time we were trying to do it. As always, we are, I guess you could say, the new media, Barry. We're always trying new, interesting things to get the message out there. And I don't know if the YouTube's going to work, but I'm recording it too, so we're going to try to upload it to YouTube. So, folks, check out the Brown Report on YouTube. I mean, we're on YouTube, we're on Blog Talk Radio, we're on Periscope. I know, Barry, that you're talking to your producer, Kim, about maybe doing a Periscope as well. It's the new hot thing that the kids love for some reason. So I encourage you to join in on Periscope, Barry, whenever you can. But I'm going to get right into what we're talking about tonight. We got a lot of topics to talk about tonight. First off, you're running a story on conservativerefocus.com. And it's trending on a lot of websites right now. There was an open letter sent, I believe, to the president with almost 200 generals and admirals telling him not to do the Iran deal. Tell us what's going on with this.
Well, they're basically saying all of the things that most of us already knew about, at least, you know, in the real media, not in the mainstream media, but the real media, the conservative media, is coming out with it. And, you know, what we have described is how pretty much a complete abortion that this thing is and what it will eventually do to all of us, Israel and the United States, certainly. And, you know, we've already discussed the fact that the Iranians believe that they must cause world chaos in order to bring about the 12th Imam, bring him back from whatever cave that he sank down into back, you know, in the, 650 or 630, whenever, you know, he died or went underground. He didn't, I don't know what he did. I don't know what he did. But anyway, he did something that was pretty funky. That's what, you know, nuclear chaos will certainly bring their 12th Imam back, okay? And so this whole deal is just a cluster F. There's no doubt about it. These generals came out and basically were seconding that. The interesting thing about this was just a couple of days earlier, there was about 36, I believe it was, progressive generals and admirals or whatever, retired types, that wrote an open letter to Congress and Obama saying that this thing needs to go through, we've got to have this agreement and so forth. And so, you know, the actual patriots that were retired generals and admirals decided to come back and do their letter, and it was 200 to 36. I think we won. What do you think?
I think we won big time, and that's why we like to win. Yeah. And I think these generals, I mean, they got the experience. With the Obama administration, they have no experience, no private sector experience, no military experience, no real experience at all. It's like amateur hour. They're the JV team of politics, not ISIS. They're the JV team. So I think that these generals and these admirals got it spot on. It's a raw deal. It's a bad deal. It's so much of a bad deal, Barry, that John, bicycle riding, I broke my leg, Kerry, made a deal with these guys saying, "Oh, you can inspect your own stuff with your own inspectors." That's the definition of insanity, Barry.
Yeah, that was a secret side agreement that they drew up that nobody knew about until much later between the IAEA, Iran, and, of course, the Obama regime. The Obama regime has been apparently having these talks since 2011, and none of us knew of it. So, you know, his thing about, well, we need to sit and talk down to them and have it out with them, well, that was basically a lot of prevaricative bull. He's been having it out with them behind everybody's backs all of this time. 4 years. So, you know, this has all been planned out. But what these generals are saying is this is not going to cut off the pathway. It's going to provide them with a legitimate path. And that's what I've been saying. And really, when they enter into this agreement, what it de facto does is it pretty much cuts Israel out of a possible attack path, at least one that the U.S. and the United Nations can agree with. I mean, you know, we're under a treaty, a so-called treaty, with Iran, and so, you know, this is sort of a we want to attack you type of deal if you do what we say, and then we find out they're doing their own inspections, and before that we found out that the it would take at least 24 days to even get anything rolling with regard to a problem with an inspection. And probably, as Trump has been stating, it would actually take more, like probably about 45 days just to get anything rolling. And that assumes that anything happens once we get the ball rolling on a problem with the Iranians. I mean, by that time, they could have had it cleaned up and sanitized and, pretty much buried if there was any sort of problem. And they also say that this does provide the infrastructure the Iranians need for a nuclear bomb to be preserved and enhanced. So they'll be continued to allow to enrich uranium, develop and test advanced centrifuges, continue to work on its ARAC heavy water. Plutonium heavy water is what's needed at the center of the bomb to produce the reaction. These concessions afford the Iranians at worst a ready breakout option and at best an incipient nuclear weapons capability. And meanwhile, we're giving them $150 billion to boot, which if we were looking at the U.S. economy, that would be the equivalent of about $8 trillion. So what could we do with $8 trillion, Matthew? We could do a lot with that, couldn't we?
Yeah, but Obama spent over $8 trillion in less than 8 years. So we know what he did with it. Not a damn thing. I mean, that's what he did. Right. I mean, the shovel-ready jobs that he laughed about that weren't really there. That's Obama in a nutshell.
Yeah.
It looks like someone on Periscope mentioned, you read an article, which is very interesting. We need to know what's going on over in Virginia with this shooting of this reporter and this cameraman. You ran a story on that. Tell us what's going on with this.
Well, I mean, it's just asking the questions. Look, the internet. I mean, the other side of the internet is swirling with these questions that remain unanswered. I mean, and yes, I had taken incoming from it, and I expected it. I had my entire staff looking at this. I had one person going off in one direction, another person going off another, and I was doing my own thing. And we each came to the same conclusion that while there's nothing that can be verified, obviously, I believe that in the basis of everything that has happened with some of these other operations where there are so many questions that still have been unanswered, and we're talking about the actors that have appeared, so many actors where you've got one that appears seemingly at each catastrophe site. And this thing was like staged. It was like media within media. And, I mean, YouTube is buzzing with this stuff. But, some people are saying, well, this is a conspiracy theory. You shouldn't be doing that. I got contacted by the Charlotte City Councilman. He's saying, what are you doing here? Why did you put this up? And I'm like, look, we're not saying that anything happened. But if you look at the timing on the Twitter pics, there are issues. They were done out of sequence. In other words, they were like, 15, 45 minutes ahead of this official time that the thing occurred. Now, we're trying to get a grip on, okay, well, what are these Twitter times? Are they accurate? Let's look at this. So we actually go to the photo and take the stream apart and try to look at the basic digital element of the pictures, and it gives us no date. They're supposed to give a create date. So, there are questions, and then you go down to not only the Twitter, but there was an interview on Megyn Kelly's show last night, and the father, the morning father, indicated that, hey, we're going to go after guns in a big way now. This is it. I talked to the governor. We're going after them. And the boyfriend, they were talking. I couldn't believe that this guy just found out that his girlfriend had died, and he was just tweeting all of these memories and all of these precious things. And, maybe that's a sign of shock. I don't know. But what I do know is there are a lot of people that are watching this going, well, this just doesn't feel right. And meanwhile, we find out that she was hit with hollow point bullets. If you go back and look at the video that they keep taking down, there is no visible impression of an impact anywhere. These are 9mm hollow points. And, when somebody gets shot at a crime scene, generally there's a lot of stuff going on the ground beneath them. And there was nothing like this here. If you go and look at the after pics, there seems to be, it doesn't even look like a crime scene. So there are a lot of questions swirling. Now, each of these questions could be answered, but the final one that got me was when you look at the final picture of the cameraman Ward's camera as it falls to the ground, the aspect ratio doesn't appear to look right. But also on the screen it says 6 a.m. and this is coming from his own camera that he's shooting, and it obviously says 6 a.m. So maybe there are technical explanations to all of these things, but there is enough of these question marks all coming together to produce a question. Okay, now, could you explain this for us? We're not saying there's a conspiracy or anything like that, but you know what? We've learned not to accept the premise, Matthew. We have learned don't automatically accept everything that you are fed by the media. Now, I mean, do you feel this way? Do you think that maybe we should be force-fed by the media and just accept everything that they put into our mouths and tell us to eat it? Or should we not question it? Because we see what the end game on this is. They want to take your guns. And first they're going to start off with the ones that have psychological problems. For God's name, who has not had some sort of issue, mentally or otherwise, or something that could be explained as a mental issue at some point in their lives? And you see, this is a problem with that. It's all subjective. And it's according, okay, well, how far out on the fringe do you go to try to suggest that somebody is so unstable that they would go out and attack their brother? And even then, we look at the actual perpetrator. And he comes from within the radio station. He hasn't been there a while. He's not a gruntled person, meaning he's disgruntled. He's got two names, and for an on-air personality, I think that's kind of funky. Maybe he's trying to hide his identity, but do you know, I mean, seriously, Matthew, I haven't asked this question. You know a lot of these types of people. You know a lot of journalists. You tell me, do they all go by pseudo names, or is it pretty much their actual name?
They're going by their names. I mean, if you're a legitimate journalist, you go by your name.
Yeah, so I don't know, and I am not saying that there is some sort of, vast conspiracy going on there, not at all, but I think that we have to ask these questions. What do you think about it?
We have to question everything now, Barry. I mean, look at the media in general. They force feed us entertainment now. Look at the Fox News debate. The first thing they try to do is get ratings by asking Donald Trump a question that they know what the answer is going to be to get ratings. And what do? We keep talking about it, talking about Fox News. All these different news outlets, they don't care about giving you the news anymore. They're caring about, can they get people to watch? Can they get people to watch so they can get advertising? That's all it's all about now, Barry. It's not about the news. It's not about educating people anymore. It's about how can we entertain the masses in terms of the mainstream media. And I know that you're not saying necessarily it's a conspiracy or me, but we've got to question what happened. What are the facts of the situation? If we continue to allow them to force feed us this information, say this is the truth, don't question it, then that's how you get sheeple. That's what we have a majority of Americans now. They don't understand the political system. They're disgruntled. They rather watch Real Housewives and reality TV and all these different things than actually get involved in politics because they feel that they're not sometimes smart enough to actually understand what's going on. And I tell people all the time, Barry, and I'm sure you do the same, that if you do not understand what's going on, you better start questioning and understanding what's going on because these people, they care about control. And we know that most of the mainstream media is controlled by liberals and leftists. It's a fact.
Absolutely.
They talk down to us like we don't know a thing. And we do know things. We know what the truth is. We dig for the truth all the time. If we continue to allow them to do this, Barry, we are no better than the left-wing media. And we know this has happened in other countries. China, control media. Russia, control media. Venezuela, Cuba. All these different countries have these centralized media outlets that are controlled. And here in the United States, we think we've got real freedom of the press, while we don't have freedom of the press at all anymore.
No, they backed them up on pretty much everything, if you've noticed. And the only way that you're going to get any true information, by and large, is from the conservative media. Mm-hmm. And Fox is good. I do not vilify Fox. They are more of a centrist organization than ever. Am I still on? Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did hear that.
Okay.
Why in the world? So, you talked about Fox, and all of a sudden they're trying to knock you out, man.
You look at Fox News, they are more centered than the rest of them, but the thing is, even they have an agenda, as we can see of how they pursued the Trump debate. They were trying to knock him out in the first debate. There's no doubt about that. It doesn't take much digging to figure this out. There are plenty of stories about this. And so they were trying to knock him out, and, it backfired on them. But, the point of all of this is, if you look at, we are not saying that this is a false flag op. And I've been attacked, and I'm used to it, for writing this article, and it doesn't really say, hey, this is this was a false flag op. It doesn't say that at all, but it asks the questions of these date-stamped photos that came from the dang UK Daily Mail, for God's sake. It's not from some right-wing militant blog. It came from the UK Daily Mail. These videos, they keep taking them down, Matthew. Every time somebody puts one up, they take them down, and they're up for a little while, and somebody pegs it, and they take it down. Why would they want to be taking this video down so often when normally they put the video out there for everybody to see? But they're trying to take this one down. Well, it's because there are a lot of problems with it. And I would love to get somebody that's expert in blood spatter and crime scenes to take a look at this, and I'm sure that they already have. But, even now, if they did, you would have to look at their political affiliation and to try to determine whether or not they're going to be honest about what they're seeing. The crime scene after the fact is the same issue. So there are so many problems here. There really are. And, and they easily could be explained, but I really don't think we're going to be getting those explanations anytime soon, Matthew.
I don't either. But Polish on Periscope's asking, ask Barry what he's suggesting. I guess, what are you suggesting here? Do you think this is some kind of, I would say, a false flag situation? But I don't know what to think, Barry, because I watched the video, and you're exactly right. All these things aren't adding up. I mean, this guy, and we talked about last night on the show, Barry, this guy points a gun. He's on, I guess, a camera phone or GoPro or something, but he points the gun at her, and I'm trying to think to myself, Barry, she's a reporter. She's trained to focus on the interview. The person that's being interviewed paying attention to her. The cameraman has turned his back to him, doing a wide shot, which they do a lot of times. I get that. But it's just like, all of a sudden, the first time she notices him was when he shoots the gun at her. And I'm not saying conspiracy theory here, but it just seems so weird.
4 feet away, and then, I'm not even getting to the meat of all this.
He's a big guy, too, Barry. He wasn't a small guy. I mean, a big guy like that, it's like invading your space 4 feet away. Think about it.
Yeah, and, he was wearing all black, okay? That's a little bit of an issue right there. So, I don't know. I mean, we just don't know, and I don't want to suggest anything. Look, the answer to the question is do not accept the premise. It could be that that it could be anything. Restaged, we don't know, okay? Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. We just don't, and I hate even going here because of because it actually can have an effect on the family. But look, my blood ran cold last night when one of the last things that the father stated was, I got a call from the governor, who was a Democrat.
Of course.
And when does that happen? Okay. But then he stated that I am going to make it my life's goal to pursue this, going after these people that are getting these guns that don't need to be getting them. And you see now, that's one thing. But then when you look at what has been happening, where I believe it was over in somewhere up in we did a report on it. I think it was Iowa or somewhere Wyoming, near Washington State, where a veteran was having his guns taken away. They were going to come take his guns away, and so a state representative, 2 of them actually responded, and a bunch of other people responded, and they cordoned this guy's house. We have the report at Conservative Focus. And they basically cordoned around this individual's house, and so they were not able to come and take the guy's guns away. And they were taking his guns away because they deemed that he could not manage his affairs, therefore he didn't need his guns. And it's not just that. It's the legislation that is being produced for even Social Security recipients to get their checks if they are unable to manage their own financial accounts, then the government says, well, you don't need to have a gun, and they want to come take those guns away. That is actually in action right now to one degree or another, and you can go look up this stuff, and you can find it at some very credible media sites. It's not just right-wing sites. You will find it everywhere because some people are clapping and cheering, as some media outlets are. This is what we need to do. That's what they're saying. So Look, the agenda to take people's guns is going to be far-reaching, and they will use the highly subjective observation of mental instability to that is impossible really to track. I mean, that's the whole thing. If you have a reckless driving ticket, they could say, oh, you're mentally imbalanced because you've got reckless driving. So we're going to take your. It could be anything, but this is the direction that they're heading in. They want to. This is a UN Agenda 30 type thing. They want the guns out of Americans' hands because it really screws up the whole plan, Matthew.
It does. And read Politics blog on Periscope. Had a valid point as well in this discussion tonight, talking about did Kate's parents get a phone call from Jerry Brown in California when she was murdered by an illegal alien that was continuously being released in San Francisco? She didn't. Their family didn't get a call because this is the thing. This is the leftists at their finest. That's definitely what they do. And not only that, Barry, is like, think about this. If it happened with a knife, would it be calling for knife control? If it happened with a crowbar, would it be crowbar control? Or any other weapon, baseball bat control. Baseball, she got beat down with a baseball bat. We should ban all baseball bats. Baseball should be ended because baseball bat violence. They don't do this. It's always about the guns. Because here's the thing. We know this for a fact. Any government that has all the guns, they have all the control. It's simple. Any country, Red China, killed millions. Stalin, Nazi Germany under Hitler, Venezuela, Cuba, Central America, any of these countries around the world that have all the guns in the hands of the government, they do these things. They do genocides. They murder people. They murder their opposition. And if people think the United States is immune from any of this, they're dead wrong. And I hate to say that because they will be dead wrong if they take the guns away from the innocent Americans. Because innocent people, when they are threatened, they have a right to defend themselves. And that's the great thing about the Second Amendment. That amendment was not created for hunting. It was created against the tyranny of the federal government or foreign invasion. That's what the left doesn't want you to know. That's why the Second Amendment's there. Not because you want to shoot a deer. It's because you might need to shoot a person just in case if tyranny becomes the norm.
Yeah, and Kim just sent me a message. She's listening, and she sent, there are things exploding on YouTube with this particular issue, saying that is it a hoax, no blood, and there's an all-seeing eye. And now we're getting into the weeds. But when they talk about the all-seeing eye, we have to. This isn't a sort of a New World Order type thing where the Novus Secloria Ordium, which is the New World Order. This is a sort of the Eye of Horus, which is the all-seeing, and you have them on your dollar bills. You have them everywhere, and it is really weird. I don't care who you are. When you look and see, like the Time Warner vans have the eye, CBS, all of them seemingly have the eye. And somebody is saying, there's a picture of Bryce Wallace, the shooter, sitting with his hands in what they call a Masonic clasp in front of a all-seeing eye. And some people believe that that's code. And you know what? I mean, I don't discount any of this stuff. I don't give it a lot of capital, but it's part of the mixture that you've got to throw in there. It may just be a dab of pepper, but it goes to making the overall recipe of what you are trying to put together. And every piece of the puzzle counts. So I don't know.
I don't know either, Barry. But we got to question it, right?
Exploding.
We have to question everything nowadays.
Question everything. Do not. And you know what? Look, this is one of my basic rules, and it's one of the most forgotten rules when it comes to arguing with a liberal, reading a news article, listening to a speech. The first thing that you should have set firmly in your mind is, I will not accept the initial premise. Now, if you can look at pretty much with everything, look at everything with regard to the information stream that you're getting on a very daily basis. If you start out, I am not going to automatically accept the premise, you will be amazed at how you will look at things differently over time. And that's the rule of thumb. Do not accept the premise period. Because everywhere you look, they're trying to force it down your throats. And we have seen this. We're $19 trillion in debt almost, Matthew, and they're running the song. Everything is awesome, everything is awesome. I mean, they're telling us. The other day, Treasury Secretary Liu said that we have no financial connections with China. He says, so don't worry about their stock market exploding.
No financial connection.
No connections whatsoever. Seriously. Does he really expect that? They've got like a chunk of our bond debt, okay, that's like $3 trillion, and they own property all over the United States, and they sell us massive amounts of stuff that we just buy without thinking. We are enmeshed, but they've set this global economy up like a domino set. Mm-hmm. Okay, if one goes down, they're all going down, and that's, I don't know, but that's how they've got it set up, Matthew.
Yeah, and the other day, the Chinese government, through their central bank, loaned their banks $22 billion. Fun fact, folks, and I think you probably know this as well, Barry, that $22 billion came from selling U.S. Treasuries on the open market. So they dumped $22 billion in Treasury. Now, they have $1 trillion plus of Treasuries, don't get me wrong, but they dumped $22 billion in Treasury in a day to stimulate their economy because they're afraid their markets are going to crash. And people don't realize, Barry, that if that Chinese stock market crashes, there's going to be some hungry, hundreds of millions of hungry Chinese people that are going to be looking for some hope and some change. And, it doesn't matter how many guns they have. It matters you have 200, 300 million people that are willing to overthrow your government. That's a lot of people. And they are a command economy. And people don't realize this, Barry. I keep saying this all the time. The economic slowdown that's happening over there is a direct result from us not buying their goods, which is a direct result in the lower gas prices, a direct result in lower dividends for oil companies. Another direct result will be lower dividends for people that are in their 401ks, people that are retired that are counting on the dividends. All these things, you get one, like you said, Barry, one domino can put this house of cards in a whole heap of trouble. And I'm waiting for it, and I think it's coming in September.
Yeah, you and me both. I've watched the upsurges in the market after it took that massive downturn. And, this is just the calm, I think, before the storm. The first wave of stock market losses was that first, that first rain band, storm band coming in for the hurricane that I believe is coming now. I hope it's not. But if you look back at history and at the cycle of the Shemitah that has occurred since 1917 that we know of, and I think we can go back further than that, quite frankly. But when we look at the cycle, it is undeniable. There have only been 3 years, each of those following 3 cycles, okay? 3 of these 7-year cycles where essentially nothing happened that we know of, okay?
Yeah.
But then all of the other ones, there have been some sort of either massive recession, hard market crash. We had September 11th of 01 was a major crash. Then we had the 08, which that was a crash so hard that it affected virtually everybody. And we still haven't gotten over that one. And now many people believe that 2015 could be even worse. And we had this article to talk about. I don't know if you want to run through it right now, but it was over in Great Britain during this market turmoil of this past 72 hours that Gordon Brown, the British Prime Minister's former advisor, I believe his name is Damien something, but he indicated, look, you need to make sure you have plenty of canned food and water on hand and plenty of cash. And these are the things that I've been saying. So they came out, this guy said this, I don't know, maybe he listens to the Brower Report, who knows? But
maybe.
This former advisor, top advisor to the British Prime Minister, he's not going to say this kind of stuff lightly, and that's not the first place I've heard that, but it is notable that they're coming out saying these things because they're looking for, a lockdown of the entire system should something happen to keep people from, doing a run on the cash within the banks. And that if that happened, well, then now we've got a major problem All of these things are highly interconnected, and that's the world that Henry Kissinger wants with his book, World Order. He just left off the new. This is what he wants, because once you have a global control, and then you introduce all of the draconian precepts of climate change agenda into all of this, and when you've got the Pope running that particular Marxist-style climate change religion with 20 ISIS nations now included, or 20 Muslim nations. I'm sorry, I mix my terms up sometimes. But you mix all of this together, and you have a major cult-like religion that the establishment ruling class that goes to church for every Sunday. Okay, I mean, this is the way it's shaping up, Matthew.
It's really scary how it's all interconnected. And people say that's a conspiracy. Well, not when it's all connected. If you can explain it and say, hey, everything's getting connected. Agenda 21. What is it? Was it Agenda 30 now? I mean, all these.
Yeah, Agenda 30.
All these things are interconnected. Agenda 21 was population control. I'm like, population control?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the population we have on the earth right now is very sustainable. I mean, we've got the resources to do it still. I mean, sure, there's people in poverty. Sure, there's people that are, hurting for food around the world. But it's not because of the United States of America's problem. It's because they have third world dictatorships that don't care about people. They care about power. Once you care about too much about power, who suffers? The people, not the people in charge.
Well, you know what, Matthew, look, because I love this conspiracy thing. Okay, I mean, your and my conspiracy, which is what Hillary Clinton refers to as the vast right-wing conspiracy, right, that conspiracy?
Yeah.
What do we want? Well, number one, we want to defeat the leftists. Number two, we want a limited government that can't do everything it wants to you. Number three, we want to be able to make our own decisions on health care. And number four, we don't think that you should take all of our money in the form of taxes to give it to the guy eating Cheetos on the couch all day, okay? Number five, I can go on and on. We believe that we should have the right to bear arms, any arm we like, okay? Number six, I can keep going. I can keep going and going and going. Now, when you take all of these things that you and I and that millions of conservatives believe in, we believe that we should have the right to self-determination. All of these things together, could you not call that a conspiracy because we're all of one mind and we're all trying to push for that? Is that a conspiracy? Because that is, in essence, a conspiracy, isn't it? It's something we all believe in. It's something that somebody else doesn't believe in. And we're all pushing for it together. We're not really, whispering to each other about it, but isn't that what Hillary referred to when she said vast right-wing conspiracy? Just because we all think alike and we're after the same goals. We don't believe in a political establishment, ruling class, oligarchy. Is that a conspiracy, or is it just, what do you call that?
Hillary Clinton calls it a vast right-wing conspiracy, I guess. We're all out to get her. We're not out to get her. If she would do the right thing, we wouldn't be out to get her. The woman's nuts. I mean, we know that. And I think she's going to get indicted, almost a guarantee. But we got so much more to talk about, Barry. We got probably around, I guess we can get this done in 30 minutes. But a really funny one that you got on Conservative Refocus is Charlie Daniels pens open letter to Congress. Your puppets, caricatures, and jokes. Charlie Daniels, I mean, the guy, I guess he has nothing really to lose. I mean, he's up in his years, and I guess the crazy uncle in the room sometimes starts talking. I'm not calling him a crazy uncle, but when you get to that age, you're like, I got nothing to lose. I'll just say whatever I want to. Here's what's on my mind. Let me share it with you. I think this is, I think he's pretty much speaking for a lot of the American people because we're frustrated.
No, he really is. And I tell you what, if Trump chose him as a vice president, that'd be it. Okay,
that'd be awesome.
I mean, a lot of people, when I put this up, a lot of them were wanting him for president. Okay, they would vote for him, And he'd be better than the pinheads we've got in there. There's no doubt about it. I mean, plus he can sing really well. But he can sing better than Obama. I mean, you've heard him sing. Oh my God. But he thinks that America has been divinely blessed. He says that America has been a counterbalance that cancels out a lot of tyranny, evil, and conquest. He says we've made a lot of mistakes, but on balance, we have been very beneficial to mankind in the last 240 some odd years. He says it took a lot of guts for the Continental Congress to do what they would do in fighting a superior force on land and sea and winning. And, he makes the point that it took courage above and beyond for Lincoln to push the country into a civil war that he knew would divide this nation for decades. I noticed here he's not saying that Abraham Lincoln was a great thing, but he was courageous. There's no doubt about it. He says it took guts to give the order for the American troops to storm the beaches of Normandy, and it certainly did. And we were fighting two simultaneous wars. I mean, we were fighting the Imperial Army of Japan and winning. At the same time, we invaded Normandy, for God's sake, and then then Patton took over the Third Army and started beating across France, just kicking the tails of the Germans. And we had a lot of black guys with us. And he called us mongrels. And for mongrels, I tell you what, we really kicked his butt across the entire continent of Europe. And then, the Russians on the other side. So, I mean, these guys, these were the greatest generation, and I believe they're still here. But as Trump said, they're the silent majority. You don't see them until a terrorist pops up on a train somewhere in France, and then you see them go into action and save everybody, because most of those other people weren't going to do a thing. But the history of this nation, Daniel says, is written in the blood and courage of men who stood in the face of overwhelming odds. Politicians, soldiers, statesmen, and ordinary citizens who thought to do the right things, like a couple of guys sitting here on a Thursday night thinking everything's wrong and we're going to do our part to try to make it right, whatever that can be. And he says, ladies and gentlemen of the United States Congress, it seems that one particular pen has run out of ink. The courageous politicians that once championed this nation have been replaced, for the most part, by a breed of milksop, politically correct, scared of their own shadow, pushover, pathetic excuses for public servants who are supposed to be representing a constituency of citizens who have to live with the circumstances of their timid folly. And, that is beautiful. And then he calls them a bunch of capons, okay? And that you know what? I mean, listen, you know what a capon is? I mean, I'm a country boy from North Carolina. Do you know what a capon is? I wouldn't blame you if you didn't.
I've been accused of being a country boy, but educate me, Barry. I have no idea.
Okay. A capon is a rooster that has been neutered. In other words, they have the rooster's testicles off. So basically what he is telling us is not only are these a bunch of chickens, he's saying they're a bunch of nutless chickens.
Wow.
And that's pretty bad. I mean, I don't know if there's a better insult on the planet. And I don't know I don't think there's a nice way to put that, but I think there's a thing called a D-less wonder. Okay, that's sort of close. But anyway, he's calling Congress a bunch of chickens without testicles.
Wow.
Okay.
That's rough.
Beautiful.
That's rough stuff.
But anyway, he says, he goes on to say, I'm trying to really synthesize this so I don't take up all your time, but he says that he's telling them to go into the bathroom and look in the mirror and ask the person you see this question. Quote, do I really believe that Iran will not use the money we're releasing to them to finance terrorists to kill Americans? And when, not if, but when the Iranians develop their nuclear device, will they really use it against America and Israel? Unquote. He says you can't hide from the truthful answer to that. He says you have allowed Obama to tilt the Supreme Court so far to the left that they're little more than a shameful extension of the executive branch. And he goes on to say this. You got to look this up again, right? You allow a corrupt government agency like the IRS to run over all of us. It says you compose a third of the constitutionally mandated ruling system and you shirk your duty. He says your ratings are in single digits, your morals are in the gutter, your minds are on self-preservation, and somewhere along the way, you've traded your honor for political expediency. You've violated your oaths, you've betrayed your country, you've feathered your nests, and you sat on hands while an imperial president has rubbed your noses in the dirt time after time. Your puppets, caricatures, jokes, a gaggle of fading prostitutes for sale to anybody who can do them a political favor. And you know what? I cannot disagree with one tittle of that. I don't know about you, but I expect you feel the same way, don't you?
100% there with you, Barry. It's really, it's refreshing to have someone that's not politically correct. It's going to say how he feels. And I think that's what the American people want more than ever is people with real courage. And the real courage nowadays is to actually be able to speak your mind. We used to be able to do that in this country, but not so much anymore. But let's talk about illegal alien anchor babies. I mean, we had Donald Trump, Mr. Politically Incorrect himself, say, talk about anchor babies. Then you have these left-wing nut job journalists. They call themselves journalists now. They're really op-ed writers now, I think. They're always giving their opinions rather than going for the facts. So they're talking about, they attacked Trump for anchor baby. Then they attacked Jeb Bush for saying anchor baby. I'm not a big fan of Jeb Bush at all because I think he's really wrong at immigration. But interesting Breitbart article that we saw that around every 93 seconds there is a birth of a child from an illegal alien, illegal immigrant, whatever you want to call them. And if you look at that, they're saying 1 out of every 12 newborns in the United States is an anchor baby. That's around 8.5% of all the children being born in this country are being born of illegal immigrants, illegal aliens. And guess what happens, Barry? Guess what happens, folks that are watching tonight, listening to the show? We pay for these people. We're paying for them because, one, they're in poverty. And here's the thing, Barry. If they're really coming here for a better life, I feel bad for them. Okay, I really do. But if you're coming here to be able to stay here while breaking the law, I don't feel bad for that. I mean, I can understand people wanting a better life for their kids and for their families. I get that. But there has to be some semblance of law and order. And I even go more this way, Barry. If we didn't have social welfare programs like we have, and we had like a fair tax system, I'd be more apt to say, I'm kind of okay with everybody coming in because we can tax everybody. Then we don't pay you anything for being here or having kids. I take a little of a libertarian point there. If we did have a social welfare programs and we had a fair tax system in place, it would be a lot easier to handle it, I think. But what's your opinion, Barry? I mean, I might be completely wrong, but I'm just trying to figure a solution to this problem.
I like that. No, I like your opinion, but the problem is 71% of these households, of all of these illegal aliens that are spewing these anchor babies, are on some form of welfare.
Yes.
Food stamps or welfare, you don't know. But 71% of these people that are spewing these children out who are becoming citizens, supposedly, I think that's in question. Mark Levin, who I listen to when it comes to Constitution, he is he and a few others, Jason, what's the guy over there at Judicial? Jason, what is his? Mark Levin says it's nowhere in the 14th Amendment. And you know what? I mean, Mark Levin, not only is he a very stalwart conservative, he knows the Constitution. He has argued before the Supreme Court, and he insists, and I believe, and I've read it, and Rush has read it, and Sean has read it, and we all pretty much agree that there is nothing in the 14th Amendment that guarantees citizenship to an anchor baby. We're once again, we're accepting a premise that is not true.
That amendment was not designed for that, though. And I think that if the American people truly understood what the design of that amendment was, the design of that amendment was to get that were at the time slaves and the children of the slaves that were not considered to be full American citizens. They were actually considered 3/5 of a person if you're looking for, I guess, census in the South. In terms of representation in Congress, they're considered 3/5 of a person. They're trying to right a wrong at that time. And now we have these liberals, left-wing nut jobs that are interpreting the 14th Amendment as something that says open season, everybody becomes a citizen if you're born here. It was never designed to be that way. And unfortunately, Barry, that the people, when they passed the 14th Amendment, did not understand the ramifications of the future. This is when you get dirty lawyers, dirty politicians, just like, I guess you say, New World Order type people trying to take down our country from within with these social welfare programs. They're using our own amendments against us, and they're interpreting it completely off base.
Well, that's what they do. That's how they live. I mean, that's how they've gotten to this point with all of our systems, be it education, government, colleges. I mean, they have infiltrated every part of it. Go back to 1963 with the inclusion by Representative Herlonger talking about the naked communists. I mean, the communists were trying to infiltrate everything. They detailed out all of their initiatives in Congress. And the Congress introduced what the goals of the communists were at that time. And if you look now at it and review it, they've pretty much met at least probably 65% of those goals, if not more. All right, and it's a complete takeover. And this is why all of a sudden we have a socialist named Bernie Sanders running for president, and he's really outclassing Hillary Clinton, for God's sake. Well, that's because of the initiative of the communists going all the way back to the early 60s. And, it took the Soviet Union for a while, but all of their policies and programs have really started to take effect. Even, they keep going. Black liberation theology, which is something that Obama and the Pope are militant believers in to a large degree. That is the very thing that has been sort of a Marxist impetus in getting all of these things to happen. But certainly in South America more so than here. But we have enclaves of it here, of this theology doctrine that is untrue. And this is the church that Obama went to for all those years. And remember, the preacher there said, "God damn America for doing this and doing that," and our chickens were coming home to roost. But all of these things are linked together in what is happening right now. And so once again, you look at when you say, well, maybe we should let them in and make them pay their taxes. That would be a good thing if we could make sure that they would think for themselves. But we've set up a welfare state, and it's automatic that they are going to vote themselves more benefits, something that many conservative and constitutionalists has warned us about. Where they can vote themselves complete benefits, you're going to get buried by a democracy that wasn't supposed to exist in the first place. This is a constitutional republic. But this is how the Democrats rule. They try to push us over into a rule-by-mob mentality rather than a rule-by-law. And this is why you're seeing the effects on... I had a police officer that is a good friend of ours in the office today. He was speaking to this. I mean, he came in and we started talking politics, and he came in just to see, some family members, and we sat down and started talking, and, he was saying, I'm probably going to eventually just get out of this because basically the president has criminalized being a police officer. We can't, our hands are almost tied now because of what the political system has done to us. And you see, this is that conspiracy that we were referring to much earlier. Now, that is indeed a conspiracy, and it certainly is happening, and everybody is in denial of it because it's unthinkable. Look, you make the mistake when you think things like that of assuming that these people think as if you do, and they do not. These people are nothing like you've ever seen before, and they are the massive control OCD freaks. I mean, obsessive compulsive to the nth degree. And obsessive and compulsive about taking your freedoms away because that's the best thing for you. This is how these idiots think, Matthew.
It is. Well, let's talk about another first-class idiot, Hillary Clinton. There's an article on WND.com, Voters to Hillary, halt her campaign. And I agree with that. I mean, she's got so much going on in terms of her trust issues with this server thing. She says, she had a question at a media press conference within the last few weeks asking, did you wipe your server clean? It's like, oh, you mean with a cloth? I'm like, that's arrogant. Then she says the Snapchat thing. I opened a Snapchat account because those emails delete themselves. I'm like, the arrogance of this woman thinking that she's going to become president of the United States. I mean, she's delusional, Barry. I think she's delusional. What do you think?
I really, that's as good as explanation as any. If she thinks she can somehow pull this thing off at this point.
Yeah.
But she always pulls out of the nosedive somehow. She's like one of those World War II bombers. Those an Avenger dive bomber that has these ungodly flaps that open up right before they're getting ready to hit, so that they can pull out of that dive after they've bombed another, amendment to the Constitution, basically, in her case. So, maybe she pulls out of this. I don't see how, but, anything's possible. She does have 9 lives, which is, the question is this her 9th one? Because I've seen all of the scandals this woman has gone through, and it's piling up on her. It's like snow in the Antarctic. I mean, she's almost covered up in like 25 foot of snow, and she's trying to struggle to get out of it. It's warm and balmy down here. Don't worry. See, there's a palm tree growing over there. I mean, it's like that with her. She can't accept the fact that she is just being inundated with all of her past issues. Not the least of which is Benghazi, when we find out that apparently the foreign dignitaries would not email her on her private server because they knew it wasn't secure. This is a new piece of information. Have you seen that? Is that not crazy?
They were afraid to email her because here's the thing. She claimed she didn't know anything that was going on. But there's people that knew that she had the private server, and they were like, "We're not emailing you. We don't want this. We don't want our information getting out there eventually," because they knew there was going to be an investigation. And how could her attorneys not know this, Barry? I mean, she probably pays them $300, $400, $500 an hour at least, and they couldn't give her solid advice. Hey, by the way, Hillary, that private server you got in that basement or that barn or something, I really think that they did not give her quality advice, or she's just so delusional she didn't even take the advice, Barry. She thinks she's the queen. She's the queen of America.
You know, it wouldn't surprise me, seeing how this thing is shaping out, if one of Obama's seniors said, you know what, Hillary, based on everything that we've seen, maybe you should take out a private server so they could turn around and whop her in the head with this in the end game, because that's what it looks like to me. You know, Hillary, maybe you should get a private server, you know, because there are a lot of issues here. And I believe she did. I've seen so many stories on this. I'm not sure which is true and which isn't. And probably it's about half and half or a little bit of all. But I even heard the other day that Chelsea, something was going on with her postpartum. I don't know. I mean, I'd have to go. I've seen so many stories on this, but what I do know is that this was probably one of the stupidest things that this arrogant woman. And boy, if you ever watched that Citizens United YouTube movie about her, oh my God. I mean, this woman deserves everything that she is getting right now. Believe me, some of the people that she has ruined for nothing, and she has some major issues, Matthew. And really, I mean, I just think she remembered the Clinton Global Foundation and all the money that they were taking in, and you know the connections that there are to that. They were doing it for payola. And so they couldn't do that on State Department computers because they would have to give that information up very easily. But if she had a private server, she used that, then she could do the Global Foundation stuff. Out of all of the explanations, including the one I just gave you about Obama telling her to go ahead and do that, and that may have been part of this, but out of all of that, I would say that because of the Clinton Global Foundation and because of the payola they were using for the State Department to put in place all of these, or put into a pass mode to let some country do this or the other country to do that. She was basically determining national policy on being bribed from foreign countries. And if you stop and look at it, well, that's basically what every politician within the United States does. I mean, you have your lobbyists, they come in there and they throw $1 million at you, like the Chamber of Commerce does to these Republicans trying to pass Trans-Pacific Partnership, many of which are conservative. They accept the money. Tim Scott took, like, what, $60,000? This is why he voted for TPP in the initial stages of it. And the Chamber of Commerce spent, $1 million, but on the foreign scale, this is precisely what Clinton was doing. So, I could understand she's such a political animal. She thought, well, they do it here on the domestic side, so why can't I do it as a Secretary of State on the foreign side? It does make sense, doesn't it?
It does make a lot of sense. It really does. We're almost wrapped up tonight, Barry, but I just want to talk one more thing. We got to talk about Donald Trump. I mean, he's sucking all the oxygen out of the room in terms of politics right now. And you probably saw it with, I think it was Juan Ramos, the guy from Univision?
And
Jorge. Okay, Jorge. I'm sorry if I got his name wrong. Yeah. But I'm sorry, folks. I mean, when we do these shows, sometimes we get all the names mixed up because there's so much stuff going on. And Barry can attest to this. This is information overload all the time for us guys. all
It
the
really
time.
is.
It's hard to keep the names straight, but we know the characters. We just don't know their names all the time. So he's not very polite. He considers himself a journalist, more of an op-ed guy. Fun fact is, this guy, his daughter works for the Hillary Clinton campaign. So he goes after Trump in his press conference in Iowa, starts going out of turn, asking questions. And, Donald's trying to be nice to the guys, like, sit down, wait your turn. Like a little child, he continues to talk and doesn't listen and take his turn like he's supposed to. So he gets escorted out. Now, Donald Trump tried to keep it a little, I think he kept it a little classy. He let him back in. Then the guy gets to answer his question again. But this is just how left-wing nut jobs act. They act so emotional sometimes. And it's just like, you know what? Would you like people invading where you live and taking all your resources? Would you like that? Would you like people just to come in and say, hey, I want to take whatever you have because I'm entitled to it because I'm poor, or because I feel offended? That's the nut job mentality of these people. And how do you think Donald handled that, Barry?
Oh, I think he handled it perfectly. I mean, he showed command, and he had journalists saying, well, that's what I would do. He had Glenn Beck actually praising him for the first time. I wrote an article scathing Glenn Beck because of his backing, and Glenn Beck went on NPR to disparage Trump. But and then lo and behold, and this article went far and wide. I have some issues when Beck backs Romney, who was God knows he was a progressive back in the day, and he says, well, Trump's not a conservative. You backed Romney, dude. Come on.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? And anyway, Beck came back, and he was actually praising Trump. I don't know if he's doing a 180 or not, but their entire staff seems to be turning around, and they have been taking some incoming. We talk about incoming. They have been taking some major incoming for, his stance pretty much every time on the behalf of the establishment, even though he's supposedly so anti-establishment. So, excuse me, maybe he comes back. I don't know. But when Trump handled that situation, it couldn't have been done any better. And him letting the guy back in, even though he's in the process of suing the guy's company, Univision, because remember, they ducked out on the Miss Universe competition, and that contract, I believe, was worth about $500 million. And so there was no contractual standing for them to do that based on what Trump had done. So Trump's suing him, and he will probably win that lawsuit. So, you would think that maybe there's a bit of a conflict of interest there for Jorge Ramos, as they call him. But Jorge is not up for it. Jorge is nothing but an activist. And, he's a dual voter. He votes in Mexico and U.S. elections, by the way. I have problems with that. I think anybody that comes in to be a citizen, I think they should have to renounce their citizenship wherever else they are, especially if they're, a leftist. Hey, that's just me. Because they're ruining the country. And, they bring in their infected plague-like ideology, and all it's doing is drag America down, which is why we're at $19 trillion and counting right now. So it's not hard to figure out. These people are not good for us. And yet we're, once again, you have to, take what we're feeding you because it's going to be good for you at some point. Maybe not right now, but certainly later. So eat what we're feeding you. It's the same, same paradigm over and over again.
Yeah, it is. It really is. But before we go tonight, Barry, before I get to the feel-good story, because, Barry, the people demand the feel-good story, and I give it to them every time. Tell the folks where they can get more information from your website.
Sure. It's conservativerefocus.com, or you can Google Barry Secrest, BarrySecrest. Books, A Perfect Liberal Storm. It's at Amazon. And, we do the CR Live show, and we always plug your show, Matthew, every single time. I'm always remembering to do it, even when we've got clips that aren't working anymore. And thank you for having me on. It's great. I love, this was, to me, I don't know why, but I have enjoyed this conversation so much, and I'm sorry I took maybe too much of your time. But, these are so many issues that are so integral, and they're not really being covered in the mainstream media, are they?
They're not, and that's why we do the shows, your show and my show, because we want to make sure the American people get the real news and views that they can use. And that's why we do this, Barry. We
Absolutely.
do it for the love of our country and to help the American people.
Well, God bless you, my friend. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks, Barry. You have a great weekend.
You too.
That's Barry Seacrest, everyone, the co-host of the Thursday night edition of the Brower Report radio show. Folks, remember, BrowerReport.com is your home of news and views that you can use because we're looking out for you, the American people. Now, remember, folks, this weekend we're going to have a lot of articles coming up on the website, so make sure to check it out. We're also running a YouTube channel now. I know it's kind of crazy. We're trying to get it all figured out. All this technology stuff. I mean, there's only a few of us, but we appreciate everyone watching the Periscope app on YouTube now and on blogtalkradio.com as we continue to get the real news and views out there that people can use on the Brower Report. As we always promise, we promise the feel-good story of the day because the people demand the feel-good story. Feel-good story comes out. Hero schoolboys rescue child aged 4 from wandering streets alone. This comes from the mirror.co.uk, the Mirror out in the United Kingdom. Wayne Trotter, Toby Clark, and Marcus Daglish alerted the police and tried to help get the youngster home when they spotted him. They find this boy wandering around, and they said, we saw this wee kid. Now, keep in mind, these are British children, okay? This wee kid just walking along the street. So we walked up to him and asked where he lived. The boy says, I grabbed his hand, and we walked him round and brought him to the house he said he lived. I knocked on the door, and a woman answered, and he said, Mommy, but she said she did not know who he was, and she called the police. We just wanted him to get him back home. Wayne's mom, Lauren, said she was very proud of her son and his friends for the swift action they took. He is just glad that the wee boy's home, and he fell in love with him. I was talking to the mother of the wee boy, and I think they have found the wee boy a friend for life. I'm very proud of these kids. These kids made a tremendous difference, especially in a day and a time when kids are told not to interact with other people, strangers, or even other kids. These kids really saw a situation, and they took this 4-year-old boy that's wandering on the streets, did decisive action, helped this kid, took him to the home he thought he lived at, was wrong, called the police, and eventually was reunited with his mother. This is what we need to do, is start caring about people like these boys. These boys are getting raised right. They're getting raised right by their parents. You can just tell, because these kids saw a situation, they reacted, they tried to take him home, didn't get the right house, but they found an adult, called the police, and got him reunited with his parents. That's really good stuff right there, folks. If we started helping each other more like that, there'd be a lot more positivity in this world and a lot less negativity in this world. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Brower Report tonight. Remember, folks, we are live Tuesday through Thursday, live 9 p.m. Eastern Time on blogtalkradio.com/Brower Report. Live on Periscope. Follow us on Periscope at Brower Report. And Twitter as well at Brower Report. And as always, like us on Facebook. We want to hear from you on Facebook. Facebook.com/Brower Report. Big thanks to Steven in the studio. We appreciate everything you do for us, being our producer. Barry Seacrest of ConservativeRefocus.com for being our co-host tonight on the Thursday night edition. And all the watchers of the Periscope and YouTube and the listeners. Thanks so much. We appreciate it. And tell your friends and family about the show as we continue to expand to different media outlets, trying to expand the reach of the Brower Report. We do it for the American people. That's just how we roll on the Brower Report. Remember, we are your home of news and views that you can use because we're looking out for you, the American people. Stay tuned for much more from us in the coming weeks as we announce more things that we're trying to do to expand the show. Thanks so much for listening. We'll be back live Tuesday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Good night, everybody.